Okay, this is our daily study of Pirkei Avot, the Mishnah Ethics of the Fathers, for those who have yard sites for tonight, the 22nd of Tammuz. Ben Applebaum, Denny Donovan, Lena Gampol, Esther Mallon, Sherman Pitluck, Flora Previn, and Jack Rubin. May their memory be for a blessing. A link to the text of the Mishnah will be in the first comment below. We are in chapter 5, Mishnah number 2. Asara doros me adam ad Noach lahodia kama erech apayim lefanav shekol hadoros hayu machisinu vayin ad shehevi aleim es mei hamabul. So the first few Mishnahs are all about tens. In the previous Mishnah we saw God created the world with 10 utterances. This one is, and we work off base 10. We have 10 fingers, 10 commandments, so kind of an easy to remember number, and a lot of patterns go in 10. So there were 10 generations in the Torah from Adam to Noah. Interestingly, those 10 generations took 1,000 years or so. Usually 10 generations are shorter than that, but everyone back then was living longer till like 900 years and having kids later. And, we don't know how to take that necessarily 100% literally or how was a year counted then, but all right, the tradition is to take it more literally. 10 generations from Adam to Noah. Okay. So that's significant that Noah is the 10th generation from Adam. And interestingly, Noah is the first child born after Adam had died. Adam saw 9 generations from himself. He lived 930 years. And that's why the commentaries say when Noach was born, he's called Noach from the word nechama, meaning consolation, because people thought, it's kind of tragic, they thought that now that Adam died, the old man died, the world was cursed because of him. He ate from the tree. And that's why humanity was punished with having to toil the earth by the sweat of our brow and having to die, not be immortal. And now that this is the first child born after the original man died, perhaps humanity will be redeemed. So they called him Noach, meaning consolation. It's kind of tragic that it was partially correct. He would save his own family and usher in a new era, but the rest of the world was actually destroyed. But something kind of poignant about that. But anyway, 10 generations from Adam to Noah, to show us how great was his long suffering, for all the generations continually angered him until he brought upon them the waters of the flood. Meaning every single one of those generations was wicked. Every one of them sinned. Humanity was just in a state of primitive barbarism. But God was patient because he waited 10 generations and then he destroyed the world and saved Noah and his family. Okay, but that's still patient to wait 10 generations. And then Asara Daros mi Noach ad Avraham, lo dia kama erech apayim lefanav, shekol daros hayu machisinu vayin ad sheba Avram, v'kibel alav schar kulam. Also, there were 10 generations from Noah to Abraham to show us how great was his long suffering. For all the generations continually angered him until Abraham came and received the reward for all of them. So too, another 1,000 years, another 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. And by the way, that in that 10, Noah himself is not included. Noah's number 10 from Adam, who's number 1. But then between Noah and Abraham, there are 10, meaning starting from Noah's son, Shem. It's a little bit confusing. And then Noah's son, Shem, is number 1, and then so Avram's actually 11 from Noah. All right, a little confusing, but 10 generations after Noah until Avraham. And it shows God was patient again. Imagine poor God, so to speak. He destroyed the world. I'll start again with Noah, and then another 10 generations were primitive and barbaric and weren't great. Noah was kind of a one-off. But then Abraham came and received the reward of all of them, meaning the reward this is what the Kahati says, the reward they all would have, quoting Rashi, the reward they all would have received, all those generations, if they had acted well. Abraham sort of was worth all of that because he, unlike Noah, was able to start something lasting. Noah was a one-off. He and his family were pious and were righteous, but as the rabbis point out, Noah was not able to sort of perpetuate his righteousness and teach others. But Abraham started a righteous family and passed it on to his kids. Not all of his kids, right? We have Ishmael and Esav and some bad descendants, but he was able to start a posterity and a family and a nation that would sort of live up to the 2 words that summarize Judaism, ethical monotheism. And starting with Abraham, that's where the world is redeemed. And of course, the great Abrahamic religions, starting with Judaism, but are 2 offshoots of Christianity and Islam. You put them all together. That's the majority of the world already subscribes to this Abrahamic principles of ethical monotheism. Okay, I've also been told by Hindus that even Hindus believe really in one God, even though there's a lot of sort of sub-gods, but there aren't really any actual pagans anymore the way there were ancient idol worshippers. So these 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. So interesting fact, Abraham was born in the year 1948 from creation. It's pretty astounding because the state of Israel was founded in the year 1948, the modern year 1948. So that's a pretty cool coincidence, right? Abraham, who was told, Lech Lecha, to go to the land that I shall show you, that's the beginning of the Jewish connection to the land of Israel. So, according to Seder Hadoros, our traditional rabbinic chronology, Abraham is born in the year 1948. And according to one midrash, he starts preaching monotheism when he's 52 years old. Okay. Well, if you do the math, he was 52 years old in the year 2000 uh, from creation. So what this would represent is the first 20 generations of humanity, which were 2,000 years, were 2,000 years of barbarism and chaos. And then finally, in the year 2000, Abraham arises and sort of redeems the world and brings it more to a state of enlightenment. Not that we don't have our own share of barbarism and chaos still in the year 5780, entering almost 5781, but Abraham certainly made it better and showed us the path. Okay, so we'll say the Malay. El Malay Rachamim Shochein Bamiro Mim Hamatzei Menucha Nechon Al Kanfei HaShechina B'Malos Kadoshim B'Tahorim Kazar Harakia Masirim Es Nishmos Kalas Garos Shel Halayla Shel Chuli Olamam Ba'avur Shemispalim Bad Haskaras Nishmasam Began Eden Tehem Menuchasam Lachein Bal Harachamim Yastireim B'Seiser Kenafav Liolamim Yitzror B'Tzorachayim Es Nishmasam Adonai Nachlasam Yanuchu B'Shalom Mishkavasam and Omar Amen. And in English, O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest in the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine like the glow of the firmament. For the souls of Ben Applebaum, Denny Donovan, Lena Gampole, Esther Mallon, Sherman Pitluck, Flora Previn, and Jack Rubin, in whose memory we study and pray. May their resting place be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore may the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of his wings for eternity. May he bind their soul in the bond of life. Hashem is their heritage. Let them rest in peace, and let us say Amen.